I don't remember ever speaking a word to Esther the whole time she was there. I think the same basically goes for John.
The happy family you saw on TV was a lie. While the Evans family laughed and hugged on screen, behind the scenes, a bitter war was tearing them apart. Good Times was a groundbreaking show about a family's love and survival, but the real story was one of resentment, broken trust, and a fight for the show's very soul. The smiles were fake, the tension was real, and it would end with its biggest stars walking away forever. The dream of a different kind of show.
All right, Junior, I'm gonna say this one more time. I don't want to hear one more word out your mouth on the subject. Not one word. Now that's clear now, ain't it, Junior?
No, Dad.
It all started with a simple idea. The show Good Times was born from another popular show called Maude. On Maude, an actress named Esther Roll played a housekeeper named Florida Evans. The producer, Norman Lear, saw how much audiences loved her and decided she needed her own show. But his first idea was very different from the show we all know. Lear wanted Florida to be a single mother raising her kids alone. Esther Roll immediately said no. She was a woman of strong principles, and she refused to be part of a show that showed another black family without a father. She had been raised with a father and a mother, and she told the producers it was important for America to see that black men stay with their families and raise their children. She stood her ground and would not sign on for the project unless a strong, loving husband was added to the story. Her demand changed everything. The producers agreed, and the character of James Evans was created, making Good Times the first ever TV show to feature a two-parent African-American family. With the mother and father in place, it was time to find the rest of the family. For the role of the father, they cast John Amos, an actor who had already played Esther Roll's husband on Maude. He was a former football player and social worker who wanted to portray a strong black father who worked hard and loved his family, the opposite of the negative images often seen on TV. To play the only daughter, Thelma, the show found a young woman named Bernadette Stanis. She was discovered at a beauty pageant, and her audition was unforgettable. When she got the script, she felt the words didn't sound like how a real teenager from the projects would talk. So, in front of the powerful producer Norman Lear, she bravely asked if she could just make up her own lines. She started talking to Jimmy Walker, who was auditioning for the oldest son, like he was her real big brother. Lear loved her confidence and her natural talent, and she got the part. The youngest son, Michael, was played by a true prodigy named Ralph Carter. At just 12 years old, he was already a huge star on Broadway in a musical called Raisin. He had even been nominated for a Tony Award, one of the highest honors in theater. Norman Lear was so impressed with him that he bought out the rest of Ralph's Broadway contract just so he could be on Good Times. In fact, after the parents, Ralph Carter was the very first new character cast for the show. Finally, there was the family's sassy and stylish neighbor, Willona Woods. For that role, Lear spotted an actress named Jeanette Dubois performing in a play in Los Angeles. He knew right away she was perfect for the part. With the cast complete, it seemed like they had all the pieces for a perfect show. They had a strong mother and father, talented kids, and a funny neighbor. They were ready to tell stories about a family that stuck together through poverty, racism, and all the hard parts of life. But one actor's incredible popularity would soon throw a wrench in that perfect plan, creating a storm that would tear their TV family apart. The Dynamite Explosion.
18 today, happy, bright, narrow man, and pure dynamite!
When Good Times started, the show was supposed to be about Florida and James Evans, the parents. But from the very first episodes, audiences fell in love with their oldest son, James Evans Jr., better known as J.J. J.J. was played by a young stand-up comedian named Jimmy Walker. At 26 years old, he was playing a 17-year-old high school student, and his skinny frame, funny walk, and big smile made him an instant star. JJ had a catchphrase that took America by storm. In almost every episode, he would stretch out his arms and yell, "Dynamite!" The phrase became a cultural phenomenon. Kids on playgrounds were saying it. It was printed on t-shirts and lunchboxes. Jimmy Walker even recorded a comedy album with that title. Interestingly, the show's director, John Rich, was the one who insisted Jimmy say it in every single episode. At first, both Jimmy and Norman Lear were not sure about it, but the audience's reaction was so huge it became JJ's signature. The problem was, JJ became too popular. The show was getting huge ratings, and the producers believed it was all because of JJ. So, the focus of the show began to shift. Instead of being about a family struggling together, more and more episodes became about JJ's silly antics and his dynamite punchline. He was no longer just a part of the family. He was the star of the show. This shift created a huge problem behind the scenes. The show that Esther Roll and John Amos signed up for was disappearing. They wanted to be part of a series that showed a real black family dealing with serious issues in a funny but respectful way. Instead, they felt they were on a show that was becoming a silly comedy centered around one character's goofy behavior. The massive success of J.J. Evans was great for the network, but for the show's original stars, it was the beginning of the end. The Dynamite. That made the show a hit was also the explosion that would blow the Evans family apart. The firing of John Amos.
Are y'all ready for this? I have met Clarissa Robinson. Love has trucked into my life and we are doing a lot of double clutching.
As JJ's popularity grew, John Amos grew more and more frustrated. He felt the show he had believed in was turning into a joke, and he was not afraid to say so. He believed the writers were putting too much focus on JJ wearing a chicken hat and yelling his catchphrase every few minutes. Amos saw this as a waste of time when they could have been telling meaningful stories. He was especially angry that the other two children were being ignored. He would point out that Thelma had dreams of becoming a surgeon and Michael wanted to be a Supreme Court justice. These were powerful, positive goals for young black kids, but Amos felt the show cared more about JJ's next silly scheme than about their dreams. A big part of the problem was that the writing staff for Good Times was almost all white. John Amos felt they had no idea what a real black family was like. He said their idea of a black father was completely different from his, and his was based on reality. He would constantly fight with them over the scripts, telling them that their jokes and storylines were not authentic to the black experience. John Amos later admitted that he was not very diplomatic in how he handled these disagreements. He was young, passionate, and born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, and he had a confrontational way of speaking his mind. He said that arguments with the writers would sometimes end with him saying, "Well, let's go outside." These were Hollywood writers. They were not used to being challenged so aggressively. Amos said that eventually, the writers got tired of having their lives threatened over jokes. The tension reached a breaking point. The writers and producers felt they could no longer work with him. At the end of the third season, Norman Lear made a phone call to John Amos. Amos remembered the call clearly. Lear said he had good news and bad news. The good news was that the show was picked up for another season. Then came the bad news. Lear told him, "You won't be with us." Just like that, John Amos was fired. He was told he had become a disruptive element. The show had to explain why the father of the Evans family was suddenly gone. In the first episode of Season 4, the family learned that James Evans had been killed in a car accident. The strong, loving father who was the foundation of the family was gone, not because of a creative choice, but because the actor who played him fought too hard for what he believed in. Why Esther Roll walked away.
Family pays its debts. Now you're gonna get your thou, but you won't get 1 cent of that crooked interest. You dig?
After John Amos was fired, Esther Roll was left to fight for the show's soul all by herself. She was just as unhappy as Amos had been about the show's new direction. She felt Good Times was becoming meaningless and full of clowning. She especially disliked the character J.J. had become, believing he was a bad role model for young black children. In a famous interview, she said she resented the idea that a black kid could make it just by standing on a corner saying, "Dynamite," when his character couldn't even read or write. Without John Amos by her side, it became much harder for her to influence the writers and producers. The show continued to focus on J.J., and Rolla felt it was becoming more and more superficial, moving further away from the serious issues it was created to tackle. On top of her creative frustrations, she also had problems with her contract. She was the star of the show, the reason it was created in the first place. She asked for a pay raise that she felt she deserved, but the producers were not willing to give it to her. The combination of a show she no longer believed in and a salary she felt was unfair was too much. After the 4th season, Esther Roll decided to leave. The writers had to find a way to explain her absence. They wrote a storyline where Florida met a new man named Carl Dixon, got married, and moved to Arizona for his health. Now, both the mother and the father of the Evans family were gone. The show had lost its heart and its moral center. But the story doesn't end there. Without Esther Roll, the show's ratings started to drop badly. The producers realized they had made a huge mistake. They went back to Esther and asked her to return for the show's final season. This time, she had all the power. She agreed to come back, but only if they met her demands. She wanted more money, and she got it. She demanded higher quality scripts, and they agreed. She also had specific requests about the story. She wanted the character of J.J. to be more responsible and act like a grown man. And she hated the storyline where Florida remarried so quickly, especially to a man who was an atheist, which went against Florida's deep Christian faith. So, she demanded that the character of Carl Dixon be written out of the show completely. The producers agreed to everything. When Florida returned, it was explained that Carl had sadly lost his fight with cancer, and she never even used his last name. Esther Roll's final stand was a victory, but it was too late to save the show she once loved. Stories from the set.
Hey, since both are just symbols of Jesus, a black family should have a black symbol.
While the parents were fighting their battles with the producers, the younger actors were trying to navigate the chaos on set. Their experiences show just how much the departures of John Amos and Esther Roll changed everything. Bernadette Stanis, who played Thelma, felt that her character did not have much to do in the beginning. Her lines were often simple things like, "Hi, Mom," or "Shut up, JJ." She remembered going to her TV mom, Esther Rolla, and telling her she wanted to do more. Rolla, being a generous co-star, stood up for her. During a script reading, Rolla told the producers that both of her sons had a lot to say, and she wanted her daughter to have a voice as well. After that, Thelma's character began to grow. When Amos and Roll left, Stanis felt a great responsibility. She said her main thought was to hold the show together because she knew that's what her on-screen parents would have wanted. Despite all the turmoil, she says the young cast members remained very close. To this day, she says she, Jimmy Walker, and Ralph Carter are like a real brother and sisters. Ralph Carter, who played the youngest son Michael, had his own challenges. He was a Broadway veteran at a young age, but on the set of Good Times, he was the only child actor for the first few years. He later said that he often felt very lonely. That all changed when a very young Janet Jackson joined the cast. From that moment on, he said he wasn't alone anymore. Ralph looked up to John Amos as a mentor and a spiritual father. The sudden departure of the show's father figure must have been a difficult blow for the young actor who admired him so much. The biggest changes happened for Jeanette Dubois, who played the neighbor Willona. When Esther Roll left the show, the producers needed a new mother figure for the Evans kids. Willona's role suddenly became much more important. This promotion was a double-edged sword for Dubois. While she was happy to have a bigger part, she also felt a lot of pressure. and when she heard that Esther Roll was coming back for the final season, she became very insecure. She worried that her screen time would be cut, and told producers she didn't know how many episodes she would even be in. But this period of uncertainty led to one of the show's most powerful and groundbreaking storylines. To give Willona a bigger role, the writers introduced a new character, a young girl named Penny, played by 10-year-old Janet Jackson. Penny was a victim of child abuse, a shocking and serious topic for a comedy show at the time. In a memorable and emotional story arc, Willona ended up adopting Penny, becoming her loving mother. The crisis caused by the original stars leaving the show accidentally created an opportunity to tell a new kind of story, one that had a major impact on audiences and gave another actress a chance to shine. Jimmy Walker's Truth.
Hello, lucky person. You got the number right, because you are talking to Kid a Dynamite!
While John Amos and Esther Roll saw the focus on JJ as a betrayal of the show's purpose, Jimmy Walker had a very different perspective. For him, the constant conflict and disapproval from his co-stars was deeply hurtful. He was a stand-up comedian who was hired to be funny. When his character became a huge hit with the audience, he was just doing his job and doing it well. But on set, he felt like he was being punished for his success. Walker has been very open about the fact that the on-screen family was nothing like the real-life cast. He said in interviews that the cast was never close and that they never hung out away from the set. His relationship with his TV parents was especially cold. He once said that he doesn't remember ever speaking a single word to Esther Roll off-camera during the entire time she was on the show. The rift was so deep that when Esther Roll passed away in 1998, Jimmy Walker was the only main cast member who did not attend her funeral. Part of the issue was that Jimmy Walker in real life was nothing like the character he played. While JJ was loud, goofy, and always the center of attention, Walker described himself as a loner, moody, and self-centered person who was not easy to get along with. He said he would often stay in his hotel room on the road because he didn't want fans to meet him and be disappointed that he wasn't the silly, giggly JJ they saw on TV. From his point of view, the fight wasn't about negative images. It was about professional jealousy and a lack of respect. He was the breakout star, the one whose catchphrase was known across the country, and he felt his on-screen parents couldn't handle his popularity. He wasn't trying to send a social message. He was a comedian trying to make people laugh. The constant criticism from Amos and Rolla was a source of pain that created a divide that never healed, turning what should have been a happy time into a source of bitter memories. Where are they now?
Hey, Thelma, how you like this? What is it? Don't show your ignorance. This is Black Jesus. Black Jesus, my foot.
After the curtain fell on Good Times, the actors who played the Evans family went on to live very different lives, each path reflecting the person they were during those difficult years on set. Just 3 weeks after being fired from Good Times, John Amos landed the most important role of his career. He was cast as the adult Kunta Kinte in the historic miniseries Roots. The show was a massive success and earned Amos an Emmy nomination. It was the ultimate validation for an actor who had fought so hard for dignified black roles. He went on to have a long and successful career, starring in movies like Coming to America and the TV show The West Wing. Years later, he and Norman Lear finally made peace, sharing a tearful hug at a live reunion special in 2019. John Amos passed away in August of 2024 at the age of 84. Esther Roll also continued to prove her incredible talent. In 1978, she won an Emmy Award for her role in the TV movie Summer of My German Soldier. She worked steadily in movies and on stage, appearing in major films like Driving Miss Daisy and Rosewood. She remained a respected actress and a powerful advocate for positive African American representation in Hollywood, until she passed away in 1998 from complications of diabetes. Jimmy Walker stayed true to his roots as a comedian. After Good Times ended, he continued to tour the country performing stand-up comedy, a career he continues to this day. He also wrote a book about his life and experiences on the show, titled Dino-Mite: Good Times, Bad Times, Our Times. Bernadette Stanis, TV's Thelma, has remained busy in the entertainment world. She has appeared in shows like The Cosby Show and, more recently, The Family Business. She also became a successful author, writing several books, including a memoir about her time on the show called Good Times: Ain't We Lucky We Got 'Em? She has been a strong defender of the show's original legacy and has spoken out about her disappointment with the 2024 animated reboot on Netflix. Ralph Carter, the young activist Michael, chose a different path. After Good Times, he largely left television behind to return to his first love, the theater. He became very active in the Black performing arts community in his native New York City. He works with an organization called Audelco, which honors excellence in African American theater. After the show ended, he also spent a significant amount of time living in West Africa, connecting with his ancestral roots. And Jeanette Dubois, the beloved Willona, had a remarkable career. She famously co-wrote and sang the iconic theme song Movin' On Up for the show The Jeffersons, another Norman Lear hit. She later won 2 Emmy Awards for her voice acting work on the animated show The PJs. Jeanette Dubois passed away in 2020. The story of Good Times is more than just behind-the-scenes drama. It's a powerful story about a beautiful dream that was broken by reality. The show was supposed to celebrate a family's strength against the world, but it was torn apart by a fight over what that strength and that family should look like. The good times on screen hid the bad times on set, leaving behind a legacy that is as complicated and fractured as it is groundbreaking.